Yo, Jet, hey, I just saw the news about your new event series. That sounds really cool. Yeah, I mean, the app integration, all that stuff, it looks really interesting. I think that it's going to be something awesome. Now, I have an important question. I didn't see it explicitly covered, so I thought I would give you a call and ask, but the rules of these events, are cults allowed? Hello? Jet? I think that's a no. Good evening, everybody. This video is sponsored by Glenn Fittich. Welcome to a discussion video on something that has just become very relevant thanks to an announcement that came out of EVIX Airsoft Con. For those of you who haven't seen it, Desert Fox is partnering with Milsim West to launch his own brand of Milsim event. Or I don't know if they're technically calling it a Milsim event, but it is a little bit of a more casual style of airsoft event that's going to be hosted all around the country, and it looks pretty cool. I think that there's a lot of potential there, and I think that the partnership between Milsim West and Jet has a lot of potential. I'm excited to hopefully check one of those games out at some point in the future. Jet, I know you watch the channel on occasion. If you need a cult leader for one of your games, I'm your guy. But this video is not about that announcement particularly. Actually, it's about the part of the announcement I personally find the most interesting, being somebody who has a little bit of an affinity for game design. I run games locally, and I have been waiting for a particular part of this forever. The Blue Fox Tracker app. To put it simply, the Blue Fox Tracker app is an app for your smartphone. Right now, I think it's on Android, and it allows you to track your teammates. It allows you to track the game's objectives. It allows scorekeeping. It allows timekeeping. It is actually a very complete feature set from what I can see, and I think it's going to help streamline the event a lot. This is something I've been waiting for since like Pokemon Go came out. Now, I had no interest in Pokemon Go when it came out personally, but I've always looked at the technology that powers it and wondered if it could be used for airsoft. And well, here we have a bit of an example of yes, it can. And I'm really excited. I'm hoping that app-integrated airsoft becomes more of a trend because I think it's going to allow people to do a lot of things that are, to use the phrase, going to change the way we play the game. If you've been to a couple of Milsim games, you know that one of the hardest parts about Milsim or playing airsoft in a large AO is keeping track of your teammates, keeping track of where the action is, and quite frankly, keeping track of what's going on. It requires a lot of participation in the chain of command, and even then, depending on who's in the chain of command, you might still have a bit of an issue. But now with the introduction of an app that acts as a companion for the game, you have that information directly available to you at all times at whatever refresh rate you set it to for whatever your data is. As a result, all of a sudden, you just have a much better way to keep track of your team. Beyond that, though, there's also the scorekeeping. Keeping score in airsoft has always been kind of an ambiguous task, especially when it comes to Milsim events, because trying to keep score on a large scale with kind of ambiguous objectives, it's hard to systemize, and it's very hard to judge unless you have an abundance of staff. With this, you're going to be able to have real-time updates on control points. You're going to have real-time updates on various other hotspots on the field that you're probably going to set, and that when players get there and activate something or do a certain thing, it'll feed into the app, and bam, you have real-time updates. There's no more need to try to send it up the chain of command, which of course is probably still going to happen, just so everyone knows what's going on if they're not looking at the app, as it should. But it allows the game masters and the admins and the team leaders and everyone else involved in running the game to have that physical data that they don't have to try to collect from a variety of different sources. They have it all on their phone, and that's going to streamline the admin process immeasurably. Furthermore, it's going to prevent a lot of frustration from players because, again, as players, sometimes it's hard to know what's going on where. And when you have no mission, that's when you lose sight of why you're at a Milsim game to begin with. If you have no mission and if you have no intel and no idea what's going on, your day sucks and you're not having fun. Pull up the app, might be fragos, might be objectives, might be all kinds of things. Just list it on there and you'll see where your guys are. Go meet up with your guys, take out one of the missions, and now you're having fun again. Of course, that is possible without the app, again, with the chain of command, but it just simplifies it with the app because you have your phone on you at all times. You're not always carrying a squad leader or someone with a really good radio. And to be honest, radios at milsim events, oh boy, oh, you poor, poor bastards. Radios are at this point less reliable than your phone. If you have a good connection, your phone is going to be a much more reliable source of information than your Baofeng. And I don't care how awesome your radio is, you can't control everyone else's radio chatter, and you can't control the fact that when you're in the middle of a concrete building, radios get very interesting. Now, of course, there are situations where cell reception is going to be a limiting factor. I'd assume that these games are going to be run only at AOs that have cell service. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to use the app, and thus it eliminates one of the major unique things about the event. Another limiting factor is going to be phone's battery life and durability. So if you have your phone on you during an airsoft game, you are taking a little bit of a risk. BBs are flying. If you've got your phone up and it gets hit on the screen, it's probably not going to be good, but there are products on the market that help address this. There are phone cases that keep your phone on your chest. You can put your phone in a pouch, and if you have a good case, your phone's probably going to be safe as long as you don't have it out in the middle of a firefight. And if you're using your phone, make sure you have a bunch of people around pulling security while 1 or 2 people are checking the app. You don't want to have an entire squad huddled around their phones, because that's when you're going to get shot because no one was looking for what's coming. You'll definitely need to invest in a battery pack, though, if you're doing any kind of phone-integrated game, because a lot of phones have kind of terrible battery life, especially if they're older phones or if you've had it for a while. The battery life starts going to shit. So make sure you have a good battery pack and make sure you have a good way to protect your phone, because both of those are going to be necessary if you are using your phone in an airsoft game for any reason, but in this case it's app integration, which actively encourages it more. Dealing with this app integration is going to require some discipline and practice from the player base as well. It's going to make a lot of things a lot easier, but I do think it has the potential to make some things harder. Again, as I mentioned, you're going to need to resist the temptation to be looking at your phone constantly. I mean, everyone walks around looking at their phone, staring at it while they're walking day to day. Well, in the middle of an airsoft game, if you're staring at your phone while walking all over the place, number one, you might be at a dangerous AO, so who knows what you're going to step into. Number two, you're going to get shot at. So make sure that you have the good discipline to only use the phone when necessary. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad day. However, what I've talked about right now are kind of the practical applications of app integration in Airsoft as it stands right now, and from what we've seen from the Blue Fox Tracker app, but I think there's more potential to the technology yet. I think it's going to allow people to do a lot more as hopefully other people jump in on this idea and start appropriating it for their own uses. I think app integration has a major future for Airsoft because there's going to be way more ideas of what you can do with integrating virtual reality elements, basically, or alternate reality elements into an Airsoft game. You're going to be able to run games in a manner that's never been done before. So in addition to physical objectives, you're also going to have virtual objectives that are going to change the way a game feels. When you all of a sudden take a control point, and yeah, you're holding a building, but now you've got it where you can see this person or this group or this team holds this building, and maybe it's your guys, maybe it's not. The real-time updates are going to make the games more dynamic, in my opinion. This newfound constant feed of information is probably going to pick up the pace of a lot of games, assuming that players can keep up with it, of course. Other than that, though, where I would love to see the technology go is into certain, I'm gonna get nerdy here, lore and LARP elements of various games. It can often feel like the storyline or scenario of a game feels a bit tacked on and is a loose justification for going out and shooting people, but if the app allows for it, you could very possibly start tagging specific locations in real time for various reasons and very much make an alternate reality game style of thing out of it. You could integrate puzzle elements where you have to find the different clues that the app will feed you as you find each different piece. So the technology giving you that ability to give players a variety of objectives that would previously have been very difficult and very abstract to communicate, and locations that you wouldn't have been able to communicate as effectively. I think that there's more that can be done with it, even than just the Blue Force tracker and the objective feed. I think you can create entire scenarios that exist virtually that players interact with in the real world, very much like Pokemon Go. This is getting very much into an honor type of system and all that, but imagine if you could give a squad a certain number of lives. So each squad member can be tagged back in on the app, so they are marked as dead when they get hit, which might require more technology integration and might require a very honor-based system. But hear me out, I'm talking about potential here. So as a squad member gets hit, they mark themselves as dead. As they get medicked back in, they mark themselves as alive. When you do that, it takes a life off of your squad. So each squad might get a cache of or a pool of lives that they can use. There are other ways to do this, of course. There used to be the card system at some of the old Lion Claws games, stuff like that. But this would be virtual and this would be tracked. So each team could have a pool. Or each time you go back to respawn, you tap in and it takes a life off. So you can limit respawns finally, which is something that's always been incredibly hard to do, short of having physical items players have to take, which then where do they put them? How do you get them back? It's kind of costly. And then you could have points on the field where, hey, capture this, get more lives. Visit this point, get your lives refreshed. Stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen at Desert Fox events. I'm not saying it should. It wouldn't work for every kind of event, and it would very much depend on your game design and the type of experience you were going for, but it is something that is potentially viable now that we're seeing the full-fledged launch of actual app-integrated airsoft. There have been other attempts to do this in the past. I remember a couple of apps that people were talking about or messing with, but they never really fed into this particular type of mode, and a lot of them were janky and kind of half-baked. So I think this is the first one that's going to be really professionally developed, and I'm hoping that more features are going to come out in the future. I wonder if there will be an option to license the app for your field. That would be a good business move, in my opinion. Allowing field owners to pay to license the app and create their own events in the app, that would be really cool. Or maybe it's already there. I haven't played with the app. I don't have an Android. I can't, and I couldn't make it to Airsoft Con, so sorry. But I've been rambling for a while and I'm almost out of scotch. What's my point here? App integration is super cool, and the introduction of more alternate reality game style of elements into Airsoft is something I'm very excited about. Again, I think having more puzzle elements, I think adding a little bit of a life management or resource management with these virtual resources. I think the scorekeeping element is great. I think the Blue Force tracking element is going to be invaluable and will help streamline the Airsoft experience. That will, I think, get more people interested. I think more people are going to be interested in a game that is now becoming less abstract and has more of a real scorekeeping method. I think that helps a lot. So I think those are just about my points. I think that's about all I have to say on the subject right now. I'm looking forward to hopefully checking out the Blue Fox Tracker app at some point and hopefully visiting and playing one of the Jet Desert Fox branded events. Very excited to see how those go, and I think that's about it. So until next time, raise a glass of Glenfiddich, have fun out there, and always remember, praise Judy. This is E-House, signing off.